In this video, I'm going to show you my simple process for making mountains pop and really stand out in your paintings, so that by the end of this full painting tutorial video, you'll know exactly how you can make your next painting 10x better. Okay, so I'm using this oleo gel and the colors, so I've got the colors there. Yeah, titanium white, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and phthalo green. So these are the colors I normally use for landscape paintings. I believe you can paint any landscapes with these colors. And it's taken a few years for me to sort of have this palette, if that makes sense. Because I used to use a lot more colors, and then I just started whittling them down, and then just found it was easier just to have a more limited palette. So I'm just imagining an imaginary cross. So I reckon the middle's about there. So lower horizon line, reckon about there. And I'm going to use quite a bit of oleo gel here, only for the underpainting, just whilst I mark everything out. Okay. There we go. And let's mark out the river. I'll tell you what, man, I can't wait to like get back down to this location. Okay, so here's our, let's put the mountain there. So this mountain's called Mount Chaos.
Funny name.
Yeah, oh, they've all got odd names. The one next to it, I can't remember what the name of it's called. But yeah, this one's, yeah, Mount Chaos. Yeah, so just marking in the main kind of you know, lines and vectors that are in the scene. I want to make sure to break up this tree line as well, so it's not forming a continuous line as well. And I'm going to be painting my dark values first. I include the clouds in that, even though the clouds are a relatively light value color. So what we can do is we can work off this existing burnt sienna here, actually. Let's mix in some ultramarine blue. Hang on. And then let's get some titanium white in there. Probably need a bit more burnt sienna. So the burnt sienna is desaturating the blue. Gonna need a lot more titanium white. And a little bit of alizarin crimson as well. So this is for the cloud shadow mix here.
Mm-hmm.
Probably make it a bit darker, actually. Actually, let's get a bit more burnt sienna in there. So I use less burnt sienna. I mean, there's burnt. I want to edge the mix more on the blue side, but I don't want it too saturated either. But if your general kind of clouds, this is a really good cloud color mix to use. That's probably a little bit too dark, so we'll just lighten that with some more titanium white, and there we go. I'm kind of just making these clouds up a little bit. And we can make this cloud a bit darker here too. The next tier of depth we've got here is we've got the snow shadows, and then we've got the shadows here in the side of this mountain. So whilst I've made this mix up already, I'll start with the darker shadows in the side of the mountain. And I'm just going to use the same color mix here, but I'm just going to make it darker. So this is going to help to bring across the color harmony in the painting because I've used these same colors in the clouds. So all the time when we're painting, we're thinking about values and the color harmony.
Mhm.
So let's just see what that looks like. I think that looks pretty good. We might be able to make it a bit lighter. We can always adjust the values again a bit later on, but I'm obviously painting on a white surface here. I prefer it because I can use the white of the canvas to sort of gauge the tonal values. And I do think it's easier than painting on a toned surface. But I'm marking in these main shadows here. Let's see. It's getting lighter in the distance. So especially in New Zealand, a lot of these mountains, they have this real strong blue cast to them. There's something about the light here. So I'm just recharging this mix as well so that I can make some of these shadows here just a little bit darker. That mountain on the edge. Oops.
It's a quite unusual start for me.
Oh, what's that
Currently, I
painting?
block it. Yeah, painting first the darks and shadows. Uh,
Yeah,
Currently, I
it's
started with painting the sky from the back to the front in general.
yeah. I mean, you don't have to do it this way, but I've just found it easier, and especially if you're plein air painting, you're really at much more of an advantage if you paint the darks first because the light moves, and you'll find that it moves quite quickly,
Yeah,
and also, it happens a lot in New Zealand. It will just suddenly cloud over, and you will have lost all your light. But if you've painted your darks first, then you've got a good idea of where all the areas in light are. So it just makes it easier. But yeah, when you first paint in this way, it can be feel a bit weird. But it's like the more you do it, just try it this way for a bit anyway, and see how you get on. But you'll find it easier to create all the tonal values in the scene that you're painting.
Mhm.
So the next thing we can do here is now we can work on the shadows and the trees, and I'm just going to use this same color mix for the moment, and we can change it in a bit, but I'm just thinking about I'm just thinking about tonal values. Because if we can build up that tonal depth in the painting really early on, it just makes things a lot easier when it comes to creating depth in your painting and just making things look like they're receding into the distance as they're meant to.
Yeah.
So also the other thing at this stage is I'm not at all worried about detail. I'm just getting the colors down and the establishing the tonal values. And then once it's dry, then I can start adding detail to it. But at the moment, you know, not worried about it. The painting may look a bit ugly at this stage, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's I know already from my paintings. There's always, I call it an ugly face.
Yeah, the ugly phase, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely goes through that. That's fine. Now then, with these trees here, we're getting a bit darker still. Yeah, the other thing about these white canvas panels that I'm painting on is they're oil primed as well, so the paint spreads on it quite easily. So even the first initial layer looks lighter in general, and then I found that when I add subsequent layers on it afterwards, that it darkens up.
I think it's easier to find the correct values because now everything seems to me very, very dark.
Oh, what on your white canvas?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if that's the case, you'll need to make the value lighter. I mean, if you find it easier to paint on a tone canvas, then yeah, definitely try. I just like for me, I just found that when I was painting on a tone canvas for years, that my darks were coming out too dark, and I'd always have to end up making a value adjustment. And I've seen this problem a lot with students in general, where they're painting on a toned surface and the colors just look off, and the darks are too dark. And then when they've gone to painting back on a white surface, they've found things a lot easier. So I don't think there's anything wrong with painting on a toned surface. But I think when you're learning, it's probably easier to just paint on a white surface and just, it also helps you to get your head around the fact that the colors you'll mix, that quite often you have to make them quite a bit lighter than you think you need to. But this is also why it's a really good idea to paint all your dark values and shadows first.
Mhm.
So now I've created a near black here with ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and a little alizarin crimson for just some of these, these little mounds that are in the foreground. And I'm kind of intentionally trying to be loose with my brushwork as well. So it creates an aliveness in the painting, which is why I like using these, like I'm using this number 5 flat brush. And I'm trying to use the biggest brushes I can get away with. So a number 5 for the size of this painting is relatively big. You know what? The first few times I tried this way of painting by painting the darks first, I thought, oh man, this is a bit weird. But then the more I got used to it, I found that it really helped with my paintings. And then I started applying it to my studio work.
Yeah,
And
it helps
I found
to
my,
have a value relationship.
yeah,
In the meantime, by older paintings, as you've seen, I've used too much dark in the background,
yeah,
and I got too early too dark. That's a
yeah,
problem. And
exactly.
this method will help definitely. Yeah.
So if you see now, just by painting the darks, we've already established like a tonal range. So we've got a darkest darks here. These are a little bit lighter. Trees here are getting lighter. Mountain shadows are getting much lighter. Cloud shadows are the lightest of the darks, if that makes sense. I'm going to paint the snow shadows next as well. And I'll work off this existing mix, but I'm mainly just going to be using ultramarine blue. Oh, you know what? I might mix a bit of that in it as well. I want the blue a little bit more, a tiny bit more saturated, but not overboard. So actually, look, I could even mix a bit of that alizarin in as well. So I'm still using pretty similar colors to this. Let's just see what that looks like. That's pretty
Oh,
good.
that's
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. So let me ask you something. Are you struggling with your paintings? Perhaps you're hitting roadblocks and you can't seem to get to the next level. Maybe you're struggling with composition, perspective, tonal values, color mixing, and you just can't seem to paint the artworks that you'd imagined? Well, let me help you with that. I'm giving away a free landscape painting blueprint. It's going to show you my whole painting process of how I approach a landscape painting. Plus, there's a full painting tutorial at the end of the guide as well. So it's totally free. Just click the link below. Oh man, I wish I was down in the South Island right now painting this. It would be awesome.
Definitely, yeah.
Like the photos, they just don't do it justice.
Yeah, I know. Even the scenes of Crete, they're brilliant in photos, but if you are on site,
Yeah,
the colors explode in your eye or in your
yeah,
mind.
exactly.
Amazing. It's really amazing to see it real.
So here we go. Yeah, just marking in these main snow shadows. We'll make a start on the clouds. Now, normally in the blocking in stage, I start with. I normally just go for some titanium white and a little bit of burnt sienna, just a little bit. Just tap the end of it on your brush. It just warms it up. But because we've used the titanium white and burnt sienna in the shadows, we're getting the color harmony there. It also mixes in nicely. Might just squeeze out a bit more titanium white, actually. We had a bit more burnt sienna. So I'm just marking in the clouds. There we go. And then let's just mark that in. So as I say, the cool thing about this color here is it just mixes in nicely if you want to do a bit of blending on the canvas with the cloud shadows yeah, the cloud shadows, should I say. And again, I'm just using loose gestural brush marks here. It doesn't matter that the cloud shadows are a bit darker because it leaves us plenty of room to add highlights to it later on in the painting. So overall, when we're painting, we want to keep the whole painting like tonally darker to start with, and then it leaves you loads of room to add areas and light as you work through the painting and build up those lighter tones, because that's what's going to also add realism to your painting. And then things like, so say for example, this when I start painting the snow on these mountains, which actually I could probably do that next actually. I actually want the snow to be darker at this stage. So it might look a little bit dull, but it'll allow me room to add lighter layers on it, because it's not, if you look at the snow closely, it's not like one continuous tone of white. There'll be a lot of darker tones in there. And then, a few highlights where it's really reflecting the sun, if that makes sense.
Yep, yep.
So now I've got my cloud mix, I can actually start marking this in now. And even though it's darker at this stage, that's not a problem, because it'll make it a lot easier to, yeah, just build up those lighter tones within it. And you'll have a far more realistic and engaging looking mountain. So I'm just marking these in now. So as you can see, not incredibly bright if you compare it to the photo, but at this stage, that's not a problem.
My sky is still too dark.
As in the clouds are too dark.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just add more titanium white in your mix. And failing that, if you're really struggling with it, you could just get a rag and just wipe it off and just repaint over it. That'll work as well.
Or I would do a glaze at a later time. I will see.
Yeah, you could try that. I generally don't do glazes anymore. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I did a glaze actually. I used to do it all the time before I got, mentoring from Andrew because, and it was because I didn't understand tonal values and the background was always coming out too dark and I couldn't figure out how to lighten it. And all I thought I could do was just put a glaze over it. But I can't even remember the last time I painted a glaze because I just make sure that my tonal values are correct as I'm painting it so that I don't need to do it. But of course, I mean, if you're painting things like, mist and stuff, you can do a glaze then. But yeah, I wouldn't rely on doing glazes to adjust tonal values.
Yeah,
I think it's better to just get it right from the get-go. But I mean, look, it's going to take a bit of practice because you're doing it in a new way that you've not done before, probably. And so it's probably going to feel a bit strange, even like, painting the dark values first. But I'd say try it a few times because you'll get used to it and then you'll find that it helps you.
yeah. It's like with everything. First one is
Yeah,
hard, and the more you do,
yeah.
the easier it goes. Yeah. Well, the last times you gave me a lot of time for that, it's definitely okay.
Oh, that's okay. Cool, man.
And now you're starting group teachings.
Yeah, so we start in 12 days. Yeah, so I've only started doing the one-on-one coaching recently, and it's really awesome. I'm really enjoying it. I just quickly realized that there's only so many people I can coach in the week, and that my it's like my diary's getting pretty full. Like my week's filling up really quickly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it means I was sort of neglecting other things. Like, I mean, one of the main things I've got is my online art school. Uh, so there's obviously there's the free community, but then I've got my online art school as well, which is also on school, and that's obviously like more in depth. There's more painting tutorials on there. Plus, I go live once a week, for like painting critiques, and I do live streams as well. Um, yeah, so obviously because people are paying there as well, I don't want to like neglect it either. So I've just found that with having quite a few um yeah, people that I'm coaching one on one, that my week was starting to fill up quite quickly. And then I just realized, a lot of this I could just do as a group and then just still give people access to me via Voxer so that they can still ask me questions outside of the Zoom meetings. I'm painting the sky here, so this is a mix of ultramarine blue with titanium white and then a little bit of phthalo green. So the phthalo green's just going to give it a green cast to it. You only need a little
Ah,
bit
yeah, yeah.
because
I see.
because the ultramarine blues it's like a red blue. It has a red undertone to it. So we just want a
Yeah,
a soft sky here.
yeah. Pictures really cool. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'll probably come back to the clouds. I think I might change them up a little bit at some point. That's okay.
yeah, yeah. Same here.
Just to, well, it's
Not
more
so
just
easy.
I just want to make them look a bit more interesting. They look a bit
Looks
boring.
already very interesting.
Let's just see. Maybe you can.
Yeah. You meant you use all your gel or something like that?
Yeah, I've just started using it. It's really good
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
I've
I've
just
read about it. It doesn't reduce the dry time,
no, it
isn't it?
doesn't.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't. It doesn't reduce the drying time, but it's just like it's a lot less toxic than liquid. Okay.
I've
So,
even banned turpentine, because it's attacked my skin at the hands.
yeah,
It was very ugly.
yeah. I don't like using turpentine at all. I mean, I use it to clean
Yeah.
my brushes, but yeah,
But
it's
it
nasty.
but it needed several years to get the information that you don't need turpentine even to clean up
Yeah,
your brush. You can do it with soap and water. It works.
yeah, yeah. You can use brush cleaner and yeah, there's all sorts
Yeah,
of
even
things you
that.
can use. So what I'm doing here is I'm mixing these like low chroma highlights that are in the trees in the background. So I've used yellow
Mhm.
ochre, some ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a little alizarin crimson. And I have a feeling I'm going to need quite a little bit of titanium white, but let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, that looks all right. So it almost looks like a kind of pale, warm grey on your palette,
Mhm. More
but
to the
then
green. Yeah, yeah, to the
but
green.
it has kind of like the appearance of green when you put it next to the blue on here.
Yeah.
So on these parts of the mountains here, that there's a native beech tree that grows on them, and it's a really dense forest. So we're just marking those in like that. The other thing with when you're making your brush marks is try and make them with intention if you can, because it just adds to the like aliveness of your painting. So next I'm going to paint some of the tops of these trees here. Again, we're dealing with some low chroma green, so we can just start off with yellow ochre and ultramarine blue and titanium white, and we'll just see how we go there. Actually, I'm mixing a little bit of alizarin. So the alizarin has got red in it. So red opposite to green on the color wheel, so it cancels it out. And it just helps to harmonize the green. I'm going to start with this color, and then I can always increase the saturation. So I might lighten that a little bit. So you could probably even add just a tiny bit of phthalo green as well. Just add a few little green elements in there. Really small amount of phthalo green would be required though. So again, it doesn't matter that this is quite dark at this stage because it gives us plenty of room to lighten it when we start adding details to it. So I'll work off this existing mix and we'll add some more yellow ochre. I'm going to start increasing the saturation by mixing in some cadmium yellow, a bit more ultramarine blue. So we're just dialing up the saturation of the color as we're coming forward. So
Mhm.
let's just see what that looks like. That looks all right. Probably mixing a tiny bit of phthalo as well. Not too much, but just enough. So as I say, remember that the trees are some of the darkest values in the landscape.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think I'm gonna put a tree over here as well, just to help balance or add a bit of balance to the composition. I'll figure out what that is in a minute. Right, so next I'm gonna start painting the grass, and again I'm just gonna like paint it next to or mix the colors next to this green mix here, which is for the trees. So let's start with some yellow ochre and cadmium yellow and ultramarine blue. So that's going to be my base green mix. And then let's get some titanium white to make the value lighter. Probably it's going to need a little bit of phthalo green. Quite a bit. I'll tell you what, it's so easy to add too much phthalo green. It's all good. I'm not mixing the
Really,
colors together. Oh, sorry, say again.
it's a sorry, it's a really strong pigment.
Yeah.
Punch really hard.
I mean, the cool thing about it is it lasts for ages.
Yeah,
But you can see here, right, I'm not mixing the colors together thoroughly. Like I like that broken color, so you can see some of those individual hues coming through. And it works really well with a flat brush. I'm also mixing in a tiny amount of cadmium red. I find it goes quite well in grass as a sort of red element, just to break up the green a little bit. And you know what? It doesn't even matter if your colors aren't exact to the photograph either. Just, as long as it just looks good in your painting.
let's start. Yeah, better.
How are you getting on? And again, just with this flat brush, I'm just doing these horizontal marks to start with, and then I can make vertical marks as well in the direction that the grass is growing. But yeah, I'm really liking this broken color. So I can just keep recharging the mix as well. A bit of that red in there, a bit of that phthalo green. Let's see how that looks.
Interesting is I've looked at the local art galleries
Oh yeah.
with my new brand set, and
Yeah.
I can see their failures. They
Yeah. Yeah.
mostly did not use any composition.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just splashed the objects right in the dead center without any leading the eye. Weird.
Yeah, you start seeing it everywhere in people's paintings.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean that's what's going to set your paintings apart from most other artists, because you'll be the one that plans all your paintings, and is coming out with some really good compositions, and your brushwork's looking good and your colors and are harmonious, so it will set you apart.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm just working my way to the foreground here. I'm gonna start painting some of the reflections in the water here. So I'm just gonna use the colors that I was using for the shadows of these mountains. And when I'm blocking in a painting, one of the things I do is towards the end of the painting is I restate the dark values. So I just go back across and just tidy up the whole scene. So I'll be doing that in a moment. But the colors we're getting are going to be a similar color to what's in the mountain here.
Yeah, more touch darker.
Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah. Was it in the art school or did I read it in the Tisch zone? Someone asked, why are stones, when they are wet, darker? And it puzzled me because I do not know.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know actually.
maybe if I find the answer, I can paint a better stone. Stones are kind of hard to me.
Yeah.
And you even see it in sand. Sand is darker if it is wet for the first seconds. Then
Yes,
it
that's
lightens
true. It
up.
is. Yeah, it's
Uh,
true.
I think it has to do something with refraction, something like that. But
Yeah.
the physics behind, I don't know. Oh, the water's very light. My is much darker. Maybe I should lighten it up.
Alrighty. Now, basically, the colors that are in the water are generally what's being reflected in the mountains and the sky. So I'll just use
Yeah,
the same brush. I'll just lighten it a little bit. Just mark that in. I'm just going to leave a bit of a gap there to paint some reflections, but see how we do. Like I wish I had this type of mentoring. Oh, I mean, it's cool that I met Andrew in the end, but I mean, if I'd have had this from the get-go, I think I'd be, way further ahead. Or I certainly would have spent all those years floundering with my painting like I was.
yeah.
So here you go. I'm just like restating the dark values. So uh I mean, one of the cool things you can do is just start building up a little bit of just texture in your painting anyway, and then you've got something to work from once it's dry. So the synthetic flat brush is really good for this. Let's see, and there's some of these. There we go. Man, I'm loving painting this. I love painting these types of landscapes.
Yeah, mountains are great, but I
Yeah,
really them because my mountains are looking too rounded. That's always a problem for me.
yeah. Do you have any do you use synthetic flat brushes at all?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I have
Okay.
dozens of brushes.
Yeah, yeah.
Too
That's
much,
cool.
I think.
Yeah. I've got a lot of brushes too.
Yeah, it's every time I'm in the painter store, I think, wow, these are looking
Yeah.
amazing. I must buy them. And I'm pretty sure I didn't use them either.
Yeah. I mainly use the flat brushes. They're my favorite. Sometimes I
Yeah,
use dagger brushes. Dagger brushes are cool. I'm not overly fond of them, but they do have their uses.
yeah, filbert are my favorites.
Yeah, filberts. I use those a lot as well. The filberts are very useful.
What am I doing here? Oh, okay.
Here we go. Yeah, so we're just restating the dark values here. You can just paint some of these exposed rock faces in this distant mountain. Okay, just I think I could tidy up some of those snowy areas as well that's in shadow. And I'm just going to use the same brush. And deep concentration here.
Yeah.
But yeah, just tidying up some of these mountains a little bit. Just repainting some of these snow shadows. There we go. I think we're getting there. Hey, I'm going to restate some of these darks in the trees here, and I think this time what I'll do is I'll just on the edge of that mix, I'm just going to also mix in a little bit of yellow ochre as well. So there's yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. Just let that mix in a little bit more, but that's probably a bit too dark. Hang on, let's lighten that a bit. Just to tidy up some of these trees here.
Mhm.
And then I can make that mix darker for these trees here. So just yeah, mostly ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. So ultramarine blue and yellow ochre is just a really good color combination for tree shadows and also grass shadows. Just tidy up these parts as well. So here I'm just painting the suggestion of a few reflections in the water. See if I can tidy up the water a bit more. Right, that, hang on. Don't need that much at the moment, but because that's the cool thing about this scene. And if we do it right, when we add the sparkles, which we'll do right at the end of the painting, it should really make the water like pop. I might just get a little bit more red in that green as well for the grass. So even just adding a few streaks of a kind of red in it as well just helps to break up the green, and it's a color opposite.
Uh-huh.
Next, I'm going to just add some of these cloud highlights. So just a bit of burnt sienna and titanium white. Perhaps a bit more burnt sienna, I think. Okay, so just adding cloud highlights here. So just another layer of paint, and also just blending in some of this shadow area into the clouds. Shadow mix again. Generally, the bases of clouds are a little bit darker as well, so it's another good little, you can just add a dark base to the clouds like that. So we can make that cloud look a bit better. All right, I think I'll leave those for the moment. And let's rework the sky again. Or I'm just going to add another layer to the sky. So titanium white, some ultramarine blue, bit of phthalo green. Probably a bit too dark, but I just want to darken the sky in general. I'm also using like thicker layers of paint here as well than that initial layer that I put down.
Okay.
So you remember the fat over lean principle. So leaner layers of paint to start with, and then as you add more layers, you build up fattier layers. So it's got thicker paint in it, and you could use more. If you were using linseed oil, for example, you'd add a bit of linseed oil. But I mean, this oleo gel is linseed oil based anyway, so I just apply thicker layers of paint, and then that way it just reduces the chance of the painting forming cracks later on down the line, or like what you've had with your painting, that disadhesion.
Mm.
And I'm just going to lighten the sky more as I get nearer to the horizon as well. Um, Another thing with the sky is I tend to do kind of vertical downwards brush marks, and it adds this texture to the sky and just makes it look a little bit more interesting.
Typically, I use tiny circles, swirlies.
Oh, alrighty. So I'm going to work on these mountains next. So let's get some oleo gel, quite a bit there. It's going to be a similar color to this shadow mix I've used for the clouds, but I'm just going to mix it down here. Bit of burnt sienna just to desaturate. And let's get some titanium white. Too bad. Yeah, and I'm just going to go over the snow again. Just going to make it look a bit cleaner as well. And I'm using synthetic brush here, synthetic flat brush, just for more kind of like chiseled marks. I'm going to lighten the sky a bit lower down as well. Yeah, so I'm just painting more of these snow shadows here. Even going to darken some of them up a little bit, like for this background mountain. I really want my brush marks to come through here as well. I like making bold brush marks. Yeah, like before years ago, I was all into detail and stuff, but I'm just not so into it anymore. I just like loose brushwork and just paintings that are a bit more impressionistic.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to be loose.
Yeah,
I'm often too much dragged to the fine details, and
yeah,
you've seen my brushes some minutes ago, very fine. Yeah,
yeah. I mean that's normal for a lot of artists, but I don't know. All the paintings I see, especially on Instagram, all the ones that stand out to me are that they're usually a lot more loose, but they just the colors and values are spot on and just look really good. People like Scott Christensen, Frank Serrano, Kimball Geisler. Um, yeah, they've just got really nice paintings and just loose brushwork, just really expressive. Anyway, so we're just adding more layers here to the snow. Hmm. I'll just leave that like that for the moment, and let's get another synthetic flat brush and use that existing mix I used for the clouds, but we're going to paint add more detail to the lower part of the mountains. So yeah, when you're painting, just think about just creating expressive brushwork. Yeah, so I'm just using this mix here to like marking as well these exposed rock faces on the side of the mountain here. So I'm making a bit of a value readjustment to the mountains here because I felt like the tonal value is a little bit too light, especially as the sky was pretty light as well. So I'm just darkening up the background altogether. So it also means I'll need to darken up the areas that are in light as well in the mountain. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Alrighty. Next, I'll paint the sunlit areas of the lower part of the mountain. I think I'll use another synthetic brush again. I need to order some more of these, actually. I've only got a few. Yellow ochre. You can use some of that alizarin crimson that's already there. And ultramarine blue.
Oops.
It's too dark, so we just need to lighten that a bit. Yeah, let's just see what that looks like. I need to just desaturate it a little bit more. Oops. That's the problem with that alizarin crimson, it's just way easy to use way too much. I'll
Yeah.
allow some phthalo green to mix in as well, but to help darken it a little bit. Let's see. That's too dark now. To get it lighter. That's the thing with these highlights. It's such a like subtle shift. You can allow some of the blue from the mountain to mix in as well. probably what I need to do there is just add some more shadow to this part as well, which is where the trees. So let's just desaturate that a bit more. Hey, I think that's looking better. I want to tidy this area up a bit better. I have to be careful that I'm not getting into that like overworking territory where you just overwork the painting. But I just want to make these lines look a bit more kind of random. And get a little bit of highlight on some of these trees as well. And that'll do for now. Now then, one more synthetic brush. And I'm going to add another layer to the snow, but I don't want it completely white yet, but I'm just going to make it a little bit darker, but also lighter than the previous layer. So the reason I'm making the snow still a little bit darker is right at the end of the painting when it's dry again, I'll add those last highlights and that'll make the snow like really pop. But at the moment I've just got the snow a little bit darker. Just tidy this area up a little bit as well. Hey. Mhm. Alrighty, I'm gonna work on the shadow areas of these trees, and let's do let's do some yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. So the value of this is getting darker. You know what? I think I'm going to use a synthetic brush for this one as well. Definitely need to order some more of these, that's for sure. You know what? Actually, I'm going to come back to the shadows in a minute. I want to do the highlight areas. So a little bit of yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, get some titanium white, a bit of ultramarine blue, and a bit of alizarin. Let's see what that looks like. Bit too saturated and a bit too light in value. So let's get some more yellow ochre. Might chuck tiny bit of phthalo green in there. I like to use like broken color so that my colors, they're not mixed together thoroughly or anything. Okay, that's okay. And I'll add some lighter layers of color on top. Just want to get some variation in the colors here. And I'll come back with the shadow mix. And then for these trees, I'm just going to make them a little bit more saturated. So are you painting along at the same time?
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely. Like all the time. It gives some most of this experience for me.
yeah, for sure. Are you getting the opportunity to do painting a lot in the week, or?
Yep.
Brilliant. Yeah, so if your green's looking too saturated, just mix in some alizarin crimson or even some yellow ochre as well.
Hmm.
So this shadow mix is ultramarine blue and phthalo green, and I'm just going to use it also to mix in with these highlight layers that I've just put in, just to make it look more like a dense dense forest. And then that existing, well, sorry, the green that I've just created here for these trees, it will mix in with the shadow mix as well, so that will just lighten the value. I just want some, textures in there and the suggestion of dense trees. And at the end of the painting, when it's dry again, I can add some highlights to the trees as well, and I'll bring them out a bit more. Same with these trees. Whoops. Could put that mountain mix in there.
Yeah, happened to me again. Some minutes ago, I dropped some green into the snow area. Not
Yeah.
very funny. Hard to recover.
And next, these shadows in the grass. Oops, I need a bit more. So I can work off this existing green mix here, and I'll mix some grass. So some cadmium yellow, ultramarine blue, titanium white. We use a bit of phthalo green, and I can mix in some of that alizarin that's already in there. Probably even use a bit of cadmium red. Good. I'll just get a little pile of cadmium red there as well. A couple of little like streaks of cadmium red in the grass always looks pretty good, I think, because it just helps to break up the green, and obviously red being the color opposite to green. Add a bit lighter. Just want it lighter and a bit more saturated. Let's see what that looks like. I'm just trying to like vary up the green a little bit, just so it's not like one monotonous shade of green.
Yeah.
So this stage of the painting is more when you're adding more layers to your initial layer that you used in the blocking stage. And then you're also perhaps making the values of the colors you're using a bit lighter as well. So when this dries again, I'll have one more session on this painting, and that's when I'll just be adding those last highlights. Definitely need more paint here. By the way, when did your painting start peeling like that? The one that you did a couple of years ago, the one that you showed me.
I started exactly 10 years ago.
Say again, sorry?
I started painting 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, I mean the painting that you showed me that started peeling.
Ah, yeah, I painted it 2 years ago,
Yeah,
and it was piled up, yeah, nearly the whole time. So something happened.
yeah. Okay, so I'm using much thicker paint here. Get some reds in there as well. Got a bit of cadmium red in there. That's better. That's what I love about these flat brushes. You can just really, make some thick brush marks with them. That's pretty awesome. And now I can go back to these shadow areas. So I'm just going to use ultramarine blue and a bit of yellow ochre. They're pretty dark. And probably once these shadows are dry, I could paint some reflected light in them. So maybe I could like warm it up with a bit of burnt sienna or something like that. I'll wait till it's dry first and see what it looks like.
Your painting looks much more vibrant than mine. So I need definitely a third session for this.
You need what, sorry?
A third session,
Oh yeah, yeah, we'll definitely do that for
one
sure.
more.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll have one more session on this next week, and then the week after we can do that seascape you wanted to paint.
Yeah, hopefully it gets quicker.
That's okay. I mean, the main thing with these sessions, I just want to sort of like give you the kind of tools and information you need that you can just go off on your own and yeah, be able to do it yourself. If that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely getting there. You can see my other painting, and I'm very glad with it. Definitely.
A bit more. Want to get a bit more like texture and in these clouds. Just trying to make them look so they're not so kind of fluffy. Just add a few little highlights like that. And it just helps to bring the mountain out. It also, you can see how much darker in value your previous layer was. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah, it really pops.
Yeah. So that's why when you're painting things like snow, you just want to keep it a little bit darker to start with. And this is also why you save the lightest value until the end, the lightest values in your painting. I'm almost practically using it straight from the tube here. Okay.
I forgot my gloves.
What's that, sir?
I've forgotten my gloves.
Oh, yeah, I wear gloves for like cleaning up, but I don't know, maybe I should wear.
Yeah,
Actually,
my skin didn't like the what is it called? Medium poor from Newton Winter.
oh, okay, yeah. Are you using liquid?
Yeah, yeah. It's a very, very thin liquid. It's
Yeah.
for fine details,
Oh,
so you
okay, yeah,
can
yeah,
really, really make it fluid.
yeah. And that Liquin also, or Windsor and Newton also do another product. It's called Liquin Impasto,
Yeah,
which is quite good for, again, for like, thick brush marks like this, for example, when you're finishing up a painting. So yeah, just I've nearly finished my painting that I'm doing at the moment. It's 20 by 24 inch. It's just a landscape, and I've been painting it in a bit more of a looser style, so I haven't been adding as much detail in it. But I like the way it's going. I kind of want my paintings, I think, to be a little bit more loose, but just with a little bit of detail. Okay, here we go. And I think for this background mountain here, I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow ochre in it, just so that it sits back a bit more, but it should still be brighter. I tell you, I think this is always the fun part of painting when you're adding the last highlights. It's really awesome.
Yeah. How do you control your emotion to change things you see?
Yeah, I think sometimes you just got to go, nah, it's just, this is how it is now. You know what? It was cool watching John Crump's video, one of his videos he was making about plein air painting. And one of the things he said was, there's been many good paintings spoiled by someone just saying, I think I'll just change that bit here.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Because it's just like you change that bit and then you suddenly you start changing something else and then you change something else and then suddenly you've changed loads of things in the painting in it and then it suddenly doesn't look as good, and that's happened to me quite a few times. And so yeah, you got to be careful doing that.
Yeah, I've destroyed paintings by
Yeah,
exact the same.
exactly.
Sometimes I thought I had should have stopped at the underpainting layer
Yeah, exactly.
because it looked for some reasons really good. If it is
Yeah.
just roughly with no details in it.
So here's another thing we can do here. There's some oops. I've got my camera tripods right in the way here, so I'm on a bit of difficulty trying to get a straight line here, but be a bit of highlight in the water. Okay, I'm going to use this same mix to paint some of these sparkles in the water, but I'm going to come back to it in a moment. Let me just get my brush holder. So I've troweled on some quite thick paint there, that white paint. I've laid it on pretty thick, so that also helps it to come forward in the painting. So probably the light's distorting it a bit here, but it's, if you look at it in real life, it's really jumping out, which is awesome. What I'm going to do next is I'm just going to add a bit more detail to the grass. I might use a smaller brush for this one. Just the grass and the trees, so just add a bit of highlight there. So probably even use a bit of this impasto medium actually. There we go. Yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, some ultramarine blue. Probably a bit too much, but never mind, that's all good. And some titanium white. Let's use a bit of alizarin just for the red element in the trees. And just chuck a bit of phthalo green in there. Oh, it's so easy to use too much phthalo green. Let's see what that looks like. I just want to add some little highlights to these trees. That looks okay. green it up a bit more. So I'm just adding these highlights to the tops of the trees here. I don't think it really needs a lot, a lot of work at all. But it just helps to add another layer of realism to them. I usually find that when I get to this stage in the painting, it's literally is just about adding the last highlights and things like that. Hence, you're saving your lightest lights until the end of the painting. Do the same with this one. These trees here. So all the time you're like you're like building up the tones in your painting. So you're starting darker and then you're progressively adding lighter layers of paint, and then you save your lightest layers until the last session of your painting. So saving it till last. And you just add in a few little highlights. And add a bit of yellow ochre for this one. I also just push the paint like that so the ends of the bristles are really loaded with paint. Oops. Okay. Uh, just sort this one out a little bit as well. And I'm going to paint a few highlights for just on this grass here as well. But I don't think it's going to need a whole lot. Or you can get a bit of cadmium red in there as well. See what that looks like. That could do with being a bit lighter. Might post this painting to Instagram later. I'm trying to post something every day at the moment, but some days I just don't get the chance. Can
Every
you see
day is a
that?
lot of time.
Yeah. Can you see with the green that I just I just kind of have like one big puddle of green and then I just add to it and
Yeah,
change it up as I'm working. So it's kind of still coming, it's from the same green if that makes sense. But
yeah. You've mixed a kind of base color and using variations of it.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm just putting a few lighter, streaks in there just for some highlight. Just helps with, adding a bit more texture to the grass. Alrighty. Yeah, just a few little more highlights on this grass. All this on there. A bit lighter. So just a few subtle highlights. And that's probably all it needs there. And I'm going to paint a few little grass shadows in the water as well. I'm going to make them a bit darker. So with shadows, the the darks come out a bit lighter, but the lights come out a bit darker. Sorry, not shadows, reflections. Reflections in water. And probably what I'll do is add a bit more shadow. So titanium white and yellow ochre. Whoops, too much yellow ochre in there. Add a bit of reflected light in it as well, so I'm just adding a bit of titanium white, tiny bit of phthalo green, bit of alizarin to calm it down. But if I was doing a big painting of this, I'd emphasize some more of the reflected light in these shadows. But I'll tidy this part up here as well. Very good in there. Okay, I think now one of the last things I'm going to do is paint these sparkles that are in the water. There we go. So I've got a number 0 pointed round. I might even try this rigger brush as well, just for some of these sparkles that are in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put it in this impasto medium, but I'm going to be using this. And then literally I'm just going to be painting some like little dots. Helps to communicate their like sunlight shimmering on the water. Just takes a bit of time, but this bit can take a bit of time. Painting all the sparkles on the water.
Yeah, but don't overdo it.
Yeah, you got to be careful not to overdo it. But it creates a nice effect. Actually, the cool thing about doing this right now is I can use my camera tripod as a kind of mole fork to keep my hand steady whilst I paint these little dots.
Yeah. In most cases, I use a marl stick.
Yeah, I use it
Really helps.
sometimes. Yeah, I use it sometimes, but not that often.
Yeah, it helps for creating straight lines, fine details.
Yeah,
It's really, really helpful.
I think partly because I've sort of been moving away from fine details, so I haven't been using it as much. As I say, I still want a bit of detail in my paintings, but I really want more loose, like painterly brushwork and just having your colours and values just absolutely spot on and just really vibrant, natural, organic looking colour. Well, 10 years ago when I was, really starting to take my art seriously, I was thinking, I just want to paint super detailed. And I remember a couple of years later, I went plein air painting with John Crump and Richard Robinson and a lot of Australian guys as well. That it was such an awesome 2 weeks. And I remember one of the Australian guys saying to me, he goes, "Oh, the more that you paint outdoors, the more that you'll want to, you don't want to do detail anymore." And I was like, "No, no, I'm always going to want to paint detail, but as time's gone on, yeah, as time's gone on, I feel like I want to loosen up and be less detailed and more expressive brushwork."